Hazinali Andi Omega Andi Omed Polefulega Kaase Andi Magis Me Aye Azek Raele.
First and foremost, giving all honor and glory to the God of our forefathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Yishkak, and the God of Israel, or the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Yahweh by name, the Lord of hosts. It is Him, to Him do we give all praises and honor on this day, and in all our days. I bid you all in the tongue of my forefathers, Shabbat Shalom Shalom Lakem.
Shabbat Shalom Shalom Lakem.
Also showing due respect to the leader and teacher of Shema Israel, Chief Prince of Paul Ben Zavulun. Also showing respect to the Chief of Chiefs of Shema Israel, Chief of Chief Naphtali Ben Naphtali. Also showing respect to the co-founder of Shema, Prince Yediel Ben Yissaskar. Also respect to the elders, men of the council, brothers and sisters, children. Once again, I bid you on the tongue of my forefather, Shabbat Shalom Shalom Lakem.
Shabbat Shalom Shalom Lakem.
To all of our visitors, we ask of you one thing. First of all, welcome. This is the day that Jehovah has made, and we will be glad and rejoice therein. But we ask one thing, that we keep an open mind. A lot of times you may hear us speak, and it sounds a little bit fiery, a little bit harsh. But we are dealing with the reality that we as a people have been asleep for so long. So when you wake up out of a sleep, sometimes you have to stretch out, exercise a little bit to get that blood pumping again. So as we begin to wake up, we don't want to wake us up in a lethargy where we fall right back to sleep. We want to be able to wake up with the energy that we need to pull our brothers and our sisters out of the same sleep that we were in just yesterday. So we have to speak with energy. We have to talk with fire. We have to talk so that the people in the world can understand where we're coming from. As we begin to learn and understand who we are, we have to begin to put on a coat. What do I mean by put on a coat? There are people in this day and time, many of us, most of us so-called Negroes, who don't know who we are as people. You'll ask the average black man, who are you? He'll tell you his religion. I'm a Baptist. I'm a Muslim. I'm a Methodist. So then you'll clarify. You'll say, what's your nationality, brother? He'll say, well, I'm a black American. I'm a Trinidadian. I'm a Haitian. Or I'm a Jamaican. Then you begin to explain to him, what is a Haitian? Well, someone who comes from Haiti. Are you from Haiti? Yes, I was born in Haiti, but are your people from Haiti? The answer is no.
That's right, that's right.
You were brought to Haiti by force. Are you a black American? No. You were brought to America by force. Are you a Jamaican? No. You were brought to Jamaica by force. Naming yourself after the land of your captivity is no different from a man that names himself after the place that he works right now. If I work for Merrill Lynch, am I a Merrill Lynchite?
No.
Or I'm a Merrill Lynchian? If I work for McDonald's, do I become part of that family because I work for that establishment? Why would you call yourself after the plantation of your forefathers' captivity? Because that's all it really is.
That's what it is. Talk about it.
So we have to begin to wake up our people to a better understanding of but you have to have a sense of history about you. Why? Because you just can't tell people that they're Israel because they want to know more. Well, how come? If you say I'm the people of the book, how come I wound up in the situation that I'm in now? Can you prove that I'm the people of the book?
Teach us.
Yes, I can prove it. Number one, we were scattered, as you know, in times past, when the Most High God pronounced cursing upon us because we rejected His laws, rejected His statutes, rejected His commandments, that we will go into captivity. We went to a Babylonian captivity. We went to a Greek captivity, Persian captivity, Roman captivity. And in our trying to escape these captivities, we fled to the shores of Africa. And now fleeing to the shores of Africa, us not being Africans, not being of the indigenous people of Africa, we were sold into slavery, what may seem to be as your own people, but you were not amalgamated with the so-called people of that territory. You're a stranger. And most of the tribes that we had, like Falasha, like Fulani, like the Ashanti, if you look at the name in the native language, it means stranger. Then you were sold off.
Break it down, Chief.
In this land.
Break it down.
Right. Kidnapped by so-called European people. And the problem is, we were indoctrinated. We were enslaved. But the problem is, once again, is that we seem to be comfortable with the indoctrination and the slavery of our oppressor.
Uh-oh. Happy-go-lucky.
Now, in an age where we should be able to have freedom, we don't want it. In an age where we should be able to release ourselves from the shackles of our oppression, we don't want to be released.
Right.
We're happy and satisfied in the state of coma.
That's why we're Easter and Christmas.
We're satisfied with being Christian. We're satisfied with being Black American, Jamaican. We're satisfied with celebrating the days and the Thanksgiving, which has nothing to do with us.
Easter.
Christmas, which has nothing to do with us. Easter, which is coming up, which has nothing to do with us. Even Halloween, which definitely has nothing to do with us.
Witchcraft.
But in our desire to fit into the society in which we live, we compromise everything. How y'all doing out there?
Pretty good.
Teach us.
This is a beautiful day,
Hallelujah.
and the Most High God has blessed us indeed with life.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Just to make it clear, the focus of Shema Yisrael is to be a tool and an instrument in helping to restore this so-called Negro and West Indian back to his true heritage and back to the knowledge of his God. So as we're here today in teaching, and as we're here on the webcast, our aim is not to bring anyone down, but in essence to uplift us to a better understanding of who we are and who our God is. It is not our agenda at all to fight with Christians, because I have people in my family who are Christians and I love them. Not with Muslims, because I have people in my family who claim the religion of Islam and I love them also. But we have to teach the truth as the truth is, and that there is only one God. His name is Jehovah, and to him all praises are due. Hallelujah. This week I found myself listening to a lot of hip-hop. Not the hip-hop that is out right now, but I got a Public Enemy compilation, and I also downloaded Why Is That? Many of you don't know, about that song. The young people don't know about the song, but KRS-One basically just broke down the book Tanakh And you know, when we first heard it, our jaws just dropped.
Yes.
Because we were like, wow. But I see the need for the society that we live in to suppress such information. America's agenda to control the socio-economic growth of the so-called Negro has been overwhelmingly successful in the 21st century. Although the rate of AIDS and drug abuse may have slowed down the black communities, the long-lasting damage to the mental state of future generations of our people has already been done. Meaning what? Despite the fact that we're not suffering through a crack epidemic right now, despite the fact that even the AIDS rate amongst black people is dropping, our people are still killing each other like there's still crack out in the streets. The violence hasn't stopped. The mentality of the youth hasn't changed. Something is still gearing the minds of our people to self-destruct. Now, how do we solve this problem? First of all, we have to acknowledge the origin of the problem. We assume that when we make money, that money will begin to answer our prayers. We assume that because you can put some clothes on your daughter's back, that can make her a decent person. We were better morally as a people when we were poor than when we had money. Now, when the capitalism and the glitz and the glamour take over your way of thinking, that becomes your focus. No longer the raising of your children. I want to go to the book of Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 32.
In the book of Deuteronomy chapter 28, starting at verse 32, hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eye shall look and fill with longing for them all the day, and there shall be naught in the power of thy hand.
Let's go down to 41 and read that. The same chapter, but the verse is 41 now.
41. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but they shall not be thine, for they shall go into captivity.
That's it. Now, we read Deuteronomy 28 a lot, don't we? And we always refer it to slavery. And yes, it is talking about that slavery. But I want to make you understand a new slavery that's going on right now. There's an atrocity happening amongst us as a people. Our children, our youth, are turning back to the mental state of slavery that their parents abandoned. The evil that most of you vow not to go back to is being embraced by the youth today.
That's right.
At one time you said, I will never go back and do the evil that I did before in my past, because I know better now. Because I found God. Because I repented of those things. Those very same things are what your children are embracing in this day and time.
Okay.
Your children are going back to the captivity that you left. Willingly.
That's right. Teach.
Nobody's forcing them. They're going back because they want to go back.
Teach.
It's no different from that guy in the Matrix that wanted to go back to sleep.
That's right. Teach.
The concept of struggle, the concept of fighting, the marching that King had to do, the speeches and the movements that Malcolm X had to make, the movements that Marcus Garvey Now you can see in this day and time, in the 21st century, it's all being flushed down the toilet.
God.
And part of the problem is when you deal with a thoughtless generation, and I'm included in that generation, so I know what I'm talking about. When you deal with a thoughtless generation, they don't consider the consequences of what they do later on.
No, they don't.
They understand the goodness of how it feels now, but they don't consider later on. There's about to be another economic crisis amongst black people.
Talk about it.
I pay attention to the news and politics of the world, but mainly I pay attention to the economic market, the system that goes on. If those of you who have been watching the news, recently a lot of mortgage companies have been filing for bankruptcy. What does that mean to us? What does that mean to us? A market that was already racially prejudiced against us has become even worse. At one time where you can probably get a house with no money down, now you would have to have at least 20% of your down payment before you even think about buying a house. Not only that, you have to have a good credit score, the best. And not only that, you have to have a stable job for the past 5 years. How many of us fit that criteria?
That's right.
Now we assume that we do, but the average house in New York City costs $500, in Brooklyn, excuse me, costs $500,000.
And up. That's right.
$500,000 up.
So do you have $100,000 to give to somebody to have a place to live? To have your stake in the American dream?
Break it down, Chief.
So no houses, no places to live. Now you say, well, I could get an apartment.
Oh, please.
Teach, Chief. Teach. Come on, Chief.
Let me tell you about apartments.
Oh, please.
Amongst black people, we own very little in the communities where we live.
Right.
If you go to a Jewish neighborhood, they own the stores.
Yeah.
They own the apartments.
That's right.
They own the block. They own the property.
That's right.
So it's a real community.
Yeah.
When you go into a black neighborhood, we live there, but they own it.
Yeah. That's a fact. That's a fact.
So therefore, in a housing crisis, the rents go up on you.
Oh, yeah.
Because they'll say, would you rather have a car or a place to live? You'd rather have a nice pair of shoes or a place to live. You can do without some of the meals. Pay your rent.
Is that right?
And now, at one time, 1 week's salary could cover your whole month's rent. That was years ago. Now, 60% of what you make in a month goes to paying your rent.
That's right.
And in a situation where you have to pay money for rent, you can never dig yourself out of the hole to save enough to pay for your own place. So therefore, especially us as black people, because we don't have the relationship with one another so that we can rely on one another for certain things, we fall very short.
Very sure.
Because we don't help one another out.
There we go.
The other communities, they'll get together and buy one house
Yeah, that's it.
so they can pay for 1 million other houses.
That's it. That's what works.
We, a generation generation of people of me, myself, and I will always find ourselves having to pull ourselves up by our bootstrap, as they say.
Always.
Yeah. Do it on your own because I got mine, you got to get yours. But a community doesn't work like that. But as you know, our condition, we hate one another. So therefore, we're going to fall into a greater level of self-destruction than we have in the past. A lot of times you were talking about, people give us papers about how to bring Israelite unity together and how to get the black people up on their feet, and they give you these bunch of outlines and they come and give you a speech, and and I don't have a problem with that because some people think that that's the best that they can do, so that they offer that. As a person in pursuit of a higher education, I can tell you this much. The success of a lot of people is based on a level of execution, not of their planning. Not of their talk, or not how well they can write a little piece of paper. If you don't have a plan of attack, then all you have is a good idea. If I say, we need to solve our housing crisis, at least amongst us, and I throw out a bunch of ideas, you know what's going to happen the next day? Nothing. Because it's talk.
Just talk.
That's why the emphasis on having a movement is so important. That's why when I talk against congregationalism and talk about the aspect of a movement, I shouldn't be met with, those little angry eyes. Because unless you have a movement, you have no accountability amongst you. And if you have no accountability amongst you, then you can't go anywhere. Because nobody's responsible for anything. Brother, we need you to take care of this business to help us go further. When I get ready, man, because right now I got something to take care of and this, whatever, and that's what it is. And then the spirit goes along to the youth and to the Nashim. Then everybody just feels that I can participate in the way I feel like it when I feel like it. So you can't set no agenda up for a people.
No.
You can't even solve the educational crisis amongst us as a people because you need discipline to do that. But see, what we have to understand is our input reflects our output. There's a terminology in the technology field called GIGO. It means garbage in, garbage out. What you put into a computer is what you get out of that computer. If you put goodness to that computer, you'll get goodness out of that computer. If you put lethargy in the computer, you'll get lethargy out of the computer. If you think that you're going to entertain people, they're going to entertain you back. And then we just be a bunch of characters in one room. But the nation has to fulfill its agenda. So then what do you do? The shackles. The shackles of our slavery, the physical shackles, were taken away from us a long time ago.
Well,
and some of us still have a problem shedding those mental shackles. And the mental shackles that we begin to shed in the 60s and the 70s, and even in the early 80s, our youth begin to pick up and put them on in the 90s and in the 21st century. Matter of fact, They wear with honor. It is an honor to be ignorant.
Teach.
Don't you know in the black community, the more heinous and criminal you are, the more famous you are? The most popular people on the block are those who do the most horrendous acts. The greatest harlot. The biggest murderer. Who sells the most crack. And this becomes the people that we look forward to. You know, we look up to these people. We admonish these people. And part of the problem is not the youth. I'm going to tell you where the problem lies. Parents opted to pursue money, financial prosperity, material wealth for the raising of their kids. I say the raising of their kids because you don't raise a child with money. You maintain them with money. Clothes, food, and shelter, the only thing that does is maintain the child. It maintains the person.
That's right. That's maintenance.
You don't raise kids with that. But what did they do? The parents begin to compromise morality, ethics, and conviction.
That's right. That's right. Speak the truth.
So that their kids can look nice.
Look nice. There you go. So they look good. That's right. That's right.
I'll show you an example. Have you ever seen a teenage mother and, you know, she got a little bit of money?
Yeah.
You see how the child look?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And chain bigger than mine.
They have a child with a chain on.
Yeah. Big chain. Yeah.
And when they beat the child, busts the chain. But it's a child.
Thank you.
Yeah. You want to hit the child when the child gets the scuff mark on the $80 Jordans.
Yes. Yes.
It's a child.
The child. Speak the truth.
You get mad because the child spills the icing on the McDonald's on his shirt, on the fat foam or the Averex or whatever shirt, or on his jacket. But it's a child.
That's what they do.
That's a child that's not being raised. It's being maintained well, yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
But it's not being raised.
So he's not been made.
And then you take a child that is used to getting this high level of fashion at the age of 5, and he doesn't know what to do without that high level of fashion. So what happens when the well runs dry? He does what he has to do to maintain his standard of living. And he ain't gonna stop. If he gotta kill, he'll do it. If he has to murder, he'll do it.
That's right.
Sell drugs, he'll do it.
That's right.
Manipulate, pimp, hustle, whatever, he'll do it. Because he has to maintain his fly boy image, fly girl image.
That's all you know. That's right.
Vanity.
And you know what? He's maintaining himself. You know how we say, I gotta eat. My children gotta eat. I gotta do what I gotta do. I gotta live, Pa.
That's it. You maintain. You gotta get mine.
But then there's no morals. It's even worse with the young women. And part of the problem with the young women is this. They live in an atmosphere where they have numerous options, but none of the options are for righteousness. You'll have women that will maintain a lifestyle, will have a baby with somebody that they think is affluent or will take care of them or whatever the case may be, so that they can maintain. They don't think about their own mental structure and the fact that they have to be educated also, because they're going to raise a child.
That's right.
But they think about what I'll get with this person, I'll be taken care of. Or I'll get my little jobby job and I'll be taken care of. But morals don't enter us no more. We're trying to pursue status.
That's what it is.
Another problem with the parents, because they compromise their morality, integrity, and conviction, they do these things so they can become relevant to a thoughtless generation.
Teach.
Parents, who are you trying to impress?
Teach, G.
Sad.
Your desire should be relevant to be relevant. Should never compromise your dignity and self-respect as an individual. We all want to be somebody. We all have aspirations and dreams. But your first obligation is to be a godly person.
Amen.
That's what matters the most. And if you want to be relevant to somebody, be relevant to relevant people.
Right.
Don't be relevant to the irrelevant. Because what makes a person matter is not because they came out with a rap record and is #1 on the charts, or because you got money, or because you got fame, or because people are scared of you. If you know anything about the Most High God, what makes a person relevant is how righteous of an individual you are. Part of this is this. A lot of us in here assume that we can tell our parents to go to whatever. We can do without certain people. We don't got to listen to elders. We don't got to do this. We can do our own thing. You can play yourself if you want to.
Thank you. Thank you. That's what you're doing. Playing yourself.
But you really are playing yourself.
That's right. That's the word.
Get down, Chief.
Because the assumption that you think that we're going to live in the Israelite world without parenting, you're dreaming.
Big dream.
Our job as teachers is not to appeal to youth.
No.
It's not to appeal to adults. It's not to appeal to the elders.
No.
It's not to appeal to the younger people.
No.
Not to the children. Not to the men or to the women. But to everybody.
That's right.
Your focus is to make the nation great, not a particular segment of it.
That's right.
I hear all the time, the youth need this, the youth need that, the youth need this, the youth need that. All of the organizations that appeal to the youth started off with nothing but old people.
That's right. Yeah.
Nothing but old people.
Yeah.
But it was the stronger, older people that the youth were attracted to.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to be attracted to people that give in to them.
No. Thank you.
You're not going to be. I know, I'm going to tell you firsthand. If you're weak enough to listen to my garbage, then you shouldn't, I'm not going to listen to you.
That's right. No.
Because I have you already.
That's it.
Puppeteer, I got you.
That's it. That's a fact. That's a fact.
But he talking fire.
That's right.
Yeah.
He got some, he talking the stuff I need to hear.
There you go.
Because when a man wants to become greater, you have to offer him that greatness.
That's right.
Teach that.
Teach that.
You can't offer him the same hell that he's trying to get out of.
That's right. Makes sense.
Makes no sense. Why are you giving me the same stuff I'm trying to escape?
Yeah.
And you know what? I was talking to a brother about this whole subject of the boxer, and our youth need to pay attention to things like that. Because the assumption that you can reject God and have salvation, I don't know where people get that from. I mean, you may see some temporary, you look at some temporary status as something, but then what's that? So as I speak and I talk to the parents, I don't mean it all to step on anybody's toes, but you have to change your way of thinking. Because your agenda is not just your personal family, it's national.
Yes, sir.
It's not about, well, what goes in my house is my business. Because, as I said before, we assume that as a people we're not connected, but everything we do is connected.
That's right.
I mean, it was a big deal when we read during Purim the issue of Vashti and Ahasuerus when she decided not to come when her husband called her. Now you may look at it as, well, that's a small indiscretion. Yeah, it's a small indiscretion for somebody like me. I'm a little man on the totem pole. He's an emperor. He can't afford to have that type of insolence amongst him. Please understand that. When you have children that you can't control amongst us, it becomes bad on everybody.
Okay.
When you have kids that don't listen amongst us, it becomes bad on everybody. Because everybody's going to come home crying about why they can't do the same things that this one does and gets away with it.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. Sure enough to say that.
Don't you know that favoritism and nepotism has destroyed empires?
Big time.
Not just Congress, empires.
Yeah, that's
Right.
right.
Straight down.
I want to go down to, before I end out, I want to go to the same chapter, verse 54.
Deuteronomy.
Deuteronomy 28, chapter 54 and 55.
Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 54. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
The man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eye shall be evil against his brother, and against the wife of his bosom, and against the remnant of his children whom he hath remaining, so that he will not give to any of them of the flesh of his children whom he shall eat, because he had nothing left him in the siege and in the straitness wherewith thine enemy shall straiten thee.
Now,
all thy gates.
you read this, and you automatically think, yeah, this happened to us, Babylon. We had a strait, whatever. They seized us, and people started eating their kids, or whatever the case may be. Let's understand it in terms of today. A siege is when, in ancient times, an army would surround your village, your town, or your city, and they would allow nothing to come in or nothing to come out.
That's right.
If you had a pool of water that, because some cities, some civilizations, they had living near rivers, and they had streams for health reasons, whatever, so that people could wash up in public bathing and stuff like that. They would shut those down. So they would basically starve the people out.
Disease.
And allow the chaos in the community to take form. Sort of like the projects today. That's why they call it a project. So the state of the black man is what? This man that is tender amongst you, very delicate. His eye shall be evil against his what? His brother, his wife, and the remnant of his children who he has remaining.
Yeah.
Let's talk about brother to brother first.
Okay, that's right.
White supremacy is something that is individual to our experience in America. A lot of times I have to get into the argument with Europeans concerning the black man's place in America. Now, people like to say, well, I never had slaves. My forefathers, they were immigrants. They didn't have slaves. They came from Italy. They came from here. They came from there. Let's make one thing clear. Your forefathers came into a country full knowing that this was a country that practiced white supremacy. So therefore, they came under the umbrella of white supremacy, knowing that this was a country that suppressed the socio-economic prosperity of black people, so they are not guilt-free.
More than that. They're down with it. They're down with it. Yep. They're down with it.
So in that, there are people that are poor. There are people that may not have. But the reason why we may not have had certain things in America had more to do because of the hatred of the people that we were dealing with. And in a system of white supremacy is different because more so than, okay, you're a slave, more so than, okay, I don't like you, more than, oh, you have to work, you get beat down, or whatever the case may be, in the system of white supremacy, they teach you to hate yourself. So when people are teaching you that you're nothing because you're born black, you begin to hate everything that is you, even your brother. You wonder why black people still call themselves niggas.
Please.
And we try to say now, well, it's a terminology now that we use to show love, and because anybody that knows anything about life know that that's an excuse because you couldn't get rid of the shackle. So it just evolved, but you just couldn't get rid of the shackle. You were called nigga by your oppressor, and you called your brother nigga. And you just didn't stop. That's all. And then we refer to each other by derogatory terminologies, especially if you're close to me. Yeah. The closer you are to me, the worse it gets. You see your girlfriend, what up, B? What up, B? See your boy, what's up? Nigga? Yeah, we got dog now. Yeah, son is nice compared to the rest of that stuff. But what you don't understand is that indoctrination is something that you do involuntarily. It ain't something that you constantly get up and walk out of there. I'm going to go and call my brother nigga. No. It becomes your second nature. That's why it's indoctrination. It's something that you just get up and do.
Yes.
Don't you know that we weren't allowed to go to church at one time?
No.
In this country?
Yeah, that's right.
We weren't allowed to read.
No.
But a black man without Christianity is like foreign. Growing up, I was born in this way of life. So growing up, when I was telling people that I don't believe in JC or Jesus, whatever, people look at you like, you had two left feet.
Yeah.
Because they don't understand the concept of God without Jesus. But then you have to explain to them, was there a God before there was a Jesus?
Yes.
And then, they get confused because the answer is yeah, but they really just don't want to say yeah. But there was a God before there was a Jesus. Well, I praise him. Somebody made this thing. Somebody created all this stuff. So that there was somebody doing something. I mean, you read, and then they try to get into what he was always. But was there a God that before there was a Jesus? You know what I'm saying? Like, is it wrong for me to praise God without having to deal with him? But you can't. No, it don't say that. It don't say that God said he wants his praise. So is it a problem if I just praise God? Because you acknowledge that there's a God.
Right. Yeah, they do.
So we have that level of indoctrination, but back to us as a people.
Right.
Now, you may not notice this, but even amongst us, we have a high level of hatred for one another. And I'm going to tell you why.
All right, teach us.
Number one is this. Sometimes you have to admit that you have a problem.
Okay.
You have to admit that you got hang-ups, man. You have to admit it.
That's right.
You have to admit that I come from a world that taught me to hate who I am, so therefore I have a problem with dealing with people.
That's right.
Sometimes we have a thing with us like we don't respect authority, especially when it comes from another brother.
Oh, yeah.
Who is he?
And we are very good for that. A lot of times our women look at their men and, they see themselves as being more educated or maybe better, or they have more sense or whatever the case may be, or they can multitask better. Joke. But you'll find a problem with dealing with a lot of our women as far as how they relate to men, because the issue of respect is not there.
Gone.
It's gone, and society tries its best to push it away from us. And I'm going to be righteous with you. To an extent, we deserve it.
There you go. You said the man's fault.
It's always our fault.
Yeah. The heads.
It's always the head's fault.
That's right.
Why? It talks about the season of straightness. That means things are going to get hard. And you know what? Think about it. Nobody could give us nothing anyway.
That's right.
We like Abraham.
All the way from Abraham. There you go. That's right.
We got to get it from God. If God don't give it to us, then we ain't going to get it.
That's right.
That's right.
So when this season of straightness is going to be hard for us, we're going to have difficulty earning our dollars. We're going to have difficulty, because $1 to a man, it's equated with his manhood. It's not the same for Nashim.
That's right.
It's not the same.
Teach.
Because when we don't have jobs, we feel inadequate because it's our God-given portion.
That's right.
It's something that's ingrained in us to say that we have to earn and provide.
That's right.
We don't want to see our children out there starving and not being able to have and this whatever and have to make them stories of why you can't afford a new pair of sneakers when everybody else got sneakers or whatever the case may be. We want our children to have the best. But what happens is we fall into the season of straightness because we begin to be money hungry and money grubbing like the society is money hungry and money grubbing. Yeah. Capitalism is one of the worst things in this world. And I'm going to prove it to you. Don't you know that in America, you think that you see people with a lot of stuff, they got cars and things that are fancy or whatever the case may be. You have the rich and you have the poor.
That's it.
That's it. Don't worry about what you see as far as the outskirts of the material. It's a costume. The rims in the car is a costume. The gold chains, all of that stuff, a costume. Even the guys that have 3-piece suits and all that stuff, it's a costume. Them guys, I work with these people. They struggle to pay their mortgages because they don't want to live around black people, and it costs a lot of money to do that.
There you go.
Gotta pay that mortgage. So they come to work and they be all scruffy. They be like, looking all messed up, and they pay that mortgage, man, because they have this thing called quality of life, but they don't want to live around this.
They would not.
Yeah, no, they're coming back now because it got you bad, boy. It's just got, I can deal with it now, as long as the cops are on the corner. Yeah. So, what you begin to see in the black community is the abandonment of the man and his family. Quite a lot of people up, huh? And it says, so that he would not give to any of them of the flesh of his children, whom he shall eat, because he has nothing left him in the season and in the straightness, wherewith the enemy shall straighten thee in all thy gates. So even in the situation where we live in, and we see ourselves not being educated because, the way the system works, we don't have jobs, we're not able to provide for our family, so we begin to destroy one another because of the systematics of this society. We begin to look on each other with a level of hatred because we can't destroy the person that we think is doing it to us right now.
That's right.
Exactly. So we become those crabs in the barrel. So what do you begin to look at? You begin to value people who are arrogant, selfish, and violent. Like you see people out in the streets today. And that becomes the person that you admonish because they get away with everything. Look at he bucked the system and nobody told him nothing. That's who I want to be. And they begin to see empowerment in evil.
Yeah.
The documentary Baptists of the Party.
Yeah.
They had an older Muslim brother there, and they talked about a lot of the blaxploitation films that came out in the 70s.
So it got set off.
And they said a lot of the damage that happened to black people happened because of those foolish movies. Because the movies had the people do stuff like, you know, the guy, he was a drug dealer, a pimp, and doing this, and yeah, he was able to get out.
He won it.
Yeah, like at the end you won, you punching the cops in the face, and you karate chopping people and all of this stuff, and I mean, that's not reality.
Right? Ron Eli.
Yeah, Ron O'Neal, my man. And he got spies, and then he becomes a government spy, and then the part 2 and all this other stuff, and the guy said, a lot of those movies, he said, what do you think was the result of a lot of those movies? The documentary person asked him. He said it kept a lot of people like me in and out of jail. He said, that's the reason why I kept staying in jail, because I always thought that I could beat the system. He said, I didn't know that the system was made for me to fail.
That's right.
I was playing a game that I couldn't win.
That's right. That's right.
The game, when you play the game, when you decide to play the game is set up so you fail. Don't play the game.
That's right.
That's how you win the game.
That's right. That's how you win.
I'm not playing it.
Because you should not be a pawn for anybody.
That's it.
That's right. That's all you know.
The other brother said, he said, I think it got a lot of people in the cemetery. Because everybody's trying to achieve a goal that they can't achieve.
That's right.
At one point, I know I already said it too, but the other point that the brother had made was that it's difficult. It's difficult to kill somebody when you're calling him brother.
Okay.
So you have to call him, you give him a bow word.
Yeah, then you can kill him.
So I'm going to tell you something about white supremacy also. Slavery the agenda of slavery for the Europeans was purely economics.
Profit, that's right.
So don't believe that this whole thing about white superiority and educational this, whatever the case may be, all of that stuff happened because we were forced not to read. You have to make a law and enforce not reading, because if you're talking about a capable people that could read and do things, you have to find a way to oppress them. You wouldn't need to make a law about not reading if the people couldn't read.
Thank you. That's okay. Thank you.
But the system was built on economics. So what they had to do was try to find a way to emotionally detach themselves from the heinous crimes and deeds that they were committing to black people. Because you can't be criminal to somebody that you think is human.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Can't do it.
No,
Right.
it won't work.
I don't care. It won't work.
It won't work. I'm sorry. No, it won't work.
You try to whip this person, and I gotta whip him so that welts come on his back, and I'm gonna treat him with salt, and I can't look at him as a human being because I'm about to do something heinous to him.
That's right.
I'm about to shackle this person. I'm about to hang him and lynch him.
Yeah.
He can't be human.
You gotta call him a name.
He has to be something else.
That's right.
He has to be a beast.
That's right.
Or 3/5 of a man. Or whatever the case may be. But he can't be a human being because the man's mind cannot take that.
There you go.
Even in war, when you pump up when generals start to pump up their soldiers, a lot of times what Europeans used to do is that they would refer to it's true. They will refer to the enemy in a what's the name state, like give it a derogatory name, especially in the U.S. Marines. Like you go to Vietnam, they call you a goop.
They call him goop. Yeah.
You know what I mean? When they fought in Somalia, they called them skinnies. You know what I mean? Whatever. But you give them a analogy away from men.
Yeah.
They're no longer men.
They're not human beings. No.
Because the thought process of a soldier is you got to kill this thing, and it can't be a man.
That's what it is. A thing.
For sure.
Gook, a chink.
So in our vision of manhood, we have to begin as men to take the approach of taking back those things that were taken away from us.
Yes, sir.
Now I would appeal to the woman because it's going to be difficult. We live in America, so we're not going to be millionaires. Black men in America just don't achieve that height unless they just compromise everything. I'm not saying you don't have your Jay-Z's or whatever the case may be, but I don't want to get on a record and talk about killing somebody all day to make $1 million. That's not me. I don't think that's morally correct. But there's other ways you can live. The average person don't want to be rich. They just want to live. Be able to have kids, sustain their family. You know, I'm not saying being rich is bad. Please. It's not my point. But if we just have our house, wife and kids, be able to educate our children, do the things necessary for us to provide for our kids, we'll be all right. But they even take away those basic things from us. Regardless of what the situation is, people have to learn how to stay together. Okay. Couples, you shouldn't break up over foolishness. You shouldn't find yourself in a situation where because you're in financial straits that all of a sudden you're no good to each other anymore. And I'm not saying you have to deal with a bum, but money is not the world. Jobs come and go, especially for us. And that's something that I'm never going to rely on in this country because they just don't like you. You know what I mean? You say, I observe the Shabbat and this or whatever it may be. They're always going to find a reason to get rid of you first.
Yeah, that's right.
Because you are a liability, in essence. I mean, you work good, whatever it may be, but you know, you can't stick around on Friday nights and whatever. You got to have these days off. You got to have that. You have conviction when most people don't.
Right.
So in ending, I would just like to emphasize a couple of things. We have to get out of the habit of speeches, agenda outlines. We got to get out of the habit of meetings for the sake of meetings.
Teach.
We got to get out of the habit of being congregants, just coming to a place just to, you know, pass time on Shabbat. We have to get into an agenda that will uplift our people out of the state of mind that they're in right now. And we need execution. We need leaders to be leaders, chief men to be chief men, laymen to be laymen, mothers to be mothers, and children to be children. Everything in its proper place. Because the assumption is that we're not going to get it together. And most people depend on our hatred for one another for our lack of success.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's right.
Because they know they're slaves. They know what they put into us, and they know what we're going to get out of the situation. But we have to begin to uplift the name of the Most High God, glorify His name always, begin to study harder and learn more, so that we can begin as a people to take ourselves out of this situation that we're in as far as the destruction and our lack of family and our lack of parenting. Because as you can see, it's having an effect upon us. I mean, you go somewhere, you just walk on the block, and you can count the amount of homosexuals you just see walking back and forth. And a lot of them are in that because nobody taught them that it's wrong. You see girls that are 15 still pushing strollers. I mean, we should have been past that by now. But nobody's telling them that it's wrong to have sex when you're 11 years old. Nobody's telling them that. You see people, they say dope money sour now, right? You see people still in the corner trying to hustle. Ain't no crackheads out here no more. What are you trying to hustle? Brother told me you make more money getting an average job than going out in the street trying to hustle. But they're still trying to live a certain lifestyle, and nobody's telling them this is wrong.
It's over.
Yeah.
Because the shackle is still on them, and nobody's taking it off. With that, I hope that we all got something out of what was said. And I hope those who have committed themselves, which is not everybody, but those who have committed themselves to helping make the change, to helping teach and uplift our people out in the streets, that we stay committed and consistent with what we do. Because we don't need to start something and have to stop it midway. I thank you all for your time. I hope you all have a blessed Shabbat day. And I thank the Most High God especially for allowing me to impart these words and speak, and I thank Him for my life. With that, I bid you on the tongue of my forefather, Shabbat Shalom, Shalom Aleichem.